Welcome to City Futures Research Center seminar series. I would like to acknowledge we are meeting today on the traditional land of the Aboriginal people, the Eora Nation, and I would like to pay my respects to the elders past and present, as well as to any First Nations people joining us today. First of all, some housekeeping rules. If you are joining online, please mute your microphone and turn off your camera during the presentation. Once we get to Q&A questions and answers, you are welcome to turn your camera back and unmute yourself. You can also put a question into the chat. I would now like to hand over to Chris Petit, Professor Chris Petit, the Director of City Futures, who will introduce today's presenter. Thank you.
Thanks, Fatima. So you're welcome to our next City Futures seminar presentation. I'm very pleased today we have an international guest who's flown in from Bogota on a whirlwind tour visiting Melbourne and Sydney. So please join me in welcoming Assistant Professor Raul Marino, who is currently Assistant Professor in Bogota in the Faculty Urban Planning, looking at the area of water-sensitive cities. And here we are in Sydney. We're looking at a changing climate, unfortunately, and we're already well into spring this week with weathers in the mid to high 20s, which is uncommon. So this topic of a changing climate is increasingly becoming more and more important, that we have good quality research looking at how we respond to floods, urban heat, and so forth. So Raul is going to talk to us about his research, I think, in Indonesia on water-sensitive cities and some of his work in Colombian cities. Raul's background, I had the privilege of supervising one of his supervisors for his PhD. We're just discussing, he finished just before COVID with some colleagues from CSIRO and University of Melbourne. He has a master's degree in urban design from ETH Zurich and many other qualifications and experience. So I'd like to warmly welcome you, Raul, to give your presentation.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for the City Futures Research Center for the invitation to present our work today. I'm very happy to be here. And just to show you a little bit of the project we have been doing back in Colombia and related to very important urban topics for climate change adaptation of cities. So my presentation today is going to be divided in two. First, I'm going to show you projects that we've been working in water-sensitive cities in Colombia. And then I'm going to show you another project from a grant we got from the Lincoln Institute of Land Policy in the US regarding exploratory scenario planning for flood reduction and resilience in Colombia. Well, as Chris was mentioning, my talk today will be based on the importance of redesigning our cities, and especially focusing on public spaces and how public spaces can interact better with the urban urban water cycle, and including nature-based solutions in a way that it can also be participatory, and how to involve community in this process, which we think is very important for the success of these kind of interventions. So mainly I'm just going to make an introduction about water, cities, and public spaces, and then talk to you a little bit about my preliminary experiences with the Water Sensitive Cities project in Australia, between Australia and Indonesia. And then our research, taking back all these concepts to Colombia on how to transition Colombian cities towards more water-sensitive cities. Then the exploratory scenario planning work that we're doing with the Lincoln Institute of Land Policy, and then just a short conclusions on my talk. First, let me just introduce our faculty and where we're coming from. I come from the Faculty of International Political Sciences and Urban Studies. And also, we work with the Urban Mapping Agency together in these projects. So with these both organizations, we have been developing different kinds of projects in Colombia, some of them related to environmental planning, but also we like to work as well a lot in community planning and participatory planning, supporting vulnerable communities in Colombia. If you scan the code, you can also get to our page and see a little bit more of our work back in Colombia. And just talking about cities and the importance of prepared cities for climate change. So we have been looking at all these kind of scenarios in many cities all over the world. This is the city of Jakarta, which is the second largest city in the world, 30 million inhabitants, and constantly suffering on these kind of floodings that, of course, affect mobility, economy, and public health, and so on. And that's the reason why the cities need to explore a different way to adapt to climate change and to manage the difference in rainfall patterns that can create disruptions such as this. And the thing is that when we have all these kind of disruptions and we have all this flooding, we also have problems with the water provision. And this is something that should not be. I mean, we have an excess of water on one hand, but on the other hand, we have lack of drinkable water. And this is something that we need to change, right? We need to really take advantage of this resource and get a little bit more creative on how to integrate it into our whole water system. So these kind of situations are being reduced more today. And just back to Colombia, and this is the city of Cartagena, which we also experienced this kind of flooding continuously. It's a city on the coast and as well is exposed to not only the rainfall flooding issues, but also to elevation of the sea levels. And actually, it's a city very vulnerable for the rise of sea levels. And we see the areas here in red are most likely going to be flooded in 2040. So it's not that far away. Large parts of the city of Cartagena, which is one of the most important cities in the Colombian Caribbean coast and a very touristic city. And that's one of the reasons that we also selected this city for our case studies, working on how to improve all these issues in Cartagena. But if on one hand we have excess of water, on the other hand we have lack of water, so we have the other phenomena, we have droughts, and this is of course in Australia as well, affecting not only the provision of water but also the production of food and everything that is related to the water chain. And this is also an important issue for all the countries that are suffering from this. And especially back in Colombia, in the city of Bogota, we are actually now, during this year, we are on water rationing. So from 1 day a week, the water is cut in a certain area of the city. And this is the first time that happens in the last 40 years. We're experiencing this, and this is something that it should not be. Because we have actually other sources of water that we are not taking advantage of. But this is the situation nowadays. We are still on water rationing. And of course, this creates a lot of problems, economical problems, social problems for a lot of the population in Bogota, which is 9 million inhabitants. So definitely we need to be more creative regarding this. And this is the mayor currently of Bogota, Carlos Galan. And he was saying that, yes, we have rain, but it doesn't matter if it actually rains within the city, it doesn't rain on the water reservoirs. And this is something that we need to change, right? We need to take advantage of all these different sources of water, not only the one that rains directly on the waterfalls, on the water reservoirs, but also the large amount of water, millions and millions of cubic meters of rainfall that fall in the city. And at the same time, we have, during this last January, a large sort of heat wave and drought that hit large areas of Colombia, especially the city of Bogota. All the red points there were bushfires around Bogota. And actually, this photo was taken from my apartment. This is the mountain next to my house. It was on fire for like 2 or 3 days. And this is, the situation that is being killing all over Colombia as well, and Bogota. And of course, this creates a even more urgent need to address these issues, because this is creating as well a lot of environmental impacts for the city. And on top of that, if we consider other issues such as the El Nino or La Nina climatic oscillations, then we have even more, exacerbated climate change effects, right? And we are suffering from that as well as Australia. We are in this area of the Pacific where we're being hit most. And then, of course, this El Nino or La Nina climatic oscillations are one of the facts that are increasing largely these kind of problems in Colombia and all the areas located around this. And if we see who have the largest resources on water in the world, then we see actually in South America, we are very lucky that we actually have the largest water resources in the world. Right? So we have abundance of the resource, but that is the reason why sometimes we don't take care of it. We don't consider ways, imaginative ways to reuse it or to reintegrate it into the water system, and that's one of the main problems that we have. So we have large access to water, and that in that ways we don't change the way that things are done normally. But if we look at this now in the in the Colombian context, the distribution of water is unequal. So we have unequal inequality and access to water. All the red areas in this map are the areas that show the barrenness index in Colombia. And of course, the Caribbean area and all the areas south of Los Andes are showing all these kind of problems of lack of access to water. So it's not that in the whole country we have large amounts of water. We also have different conditions within the country. And of course, this creates a lot of problems related to food security and increase of risk also related to water, and public health problems related to water access and quality. And also, if we consider that between the goals for development that we have now, one of the main ones is the goal number 6, clean water and sanitation. And this is one of the most pressing issues as well, and especially in developing countries, trying to provide safe and affordable drinking water, and but also implementing more integrated water resource management. So not relying only in the provision from the, let's say, current or normal water providers, but also to have a little bit more integrated water resource management and integrating other sources into the system. And this is especially more pressing because of the whole climate change situation that we have. And we are looking for ways to have adaptation measures and mitigation measures as well. And nature-based solutions and green infrastructure are a great tool to address these issues and try to change this concept and to consider cities not only as water users and polluters, but also the cities as water catchments. That is a concept that we've been used, in many cities today. In China, they talk about sponge cities, for example. So cities that actually take all the water and reuse it and reintegrate it into the system. And also the change from a traditional centralized system, just one big pipe providing all the water to the city, but more decentralized systems that in that way we will be more resilient to disruptions in the systems as well. And also considering the urban water cycle, trying to change this linear kind of inefficient water urban metabolism when we get the water and we use it and pollute it, and then we just put it into the rivers and onto the sea, and trying to create a more circular metabolism, right? So taking advantage of the resources that we have, the rainwater, but also reusing of wastewaters in a way that we can integrate it as well into the system. But if we consider actually that when in every kind of big rain that we have, there are millions of cubic meters of water getting into the city, and we translate that into money, that's amounts of millions of dollars, right? So it's like millions of dollars literally raining, but we are not taking advantage of it. And then we have this kind of problem. So we have the water rationing, and then the people have to get the water in this sort of way, or that create actually problems with flooding and large flooding in urban areas. And if looking at the different ways that cities interact with water, here in this diagram, we see on the left the kind of normal, or let's say natural condition of a city, or before a city is built, that we have a natural environment, we have a lot of precipitation and a lot of infiltration because there is no impervious surface, and we have reduced water runoff and a lot of evapotranspiration. And what happens when we put the city in the place? So we have same precipitation, but we have a lot of reduced infiltration, right? And this is a big problem because this is affecting the underground aquifers that actually are a big part, important part of the system. But not only that, we are creating large amounts of poor quality runoff, polluted. And then we also will need a lot of imported water, and then we create a lot of wastewater discharge as well. And what we want to do is, through the inclusion of these measures, green technologies or nature-based solutions, to promote the reuse of stormwater runoff into the system, but also, to make the wastewater a little bit more circular, right? And with this way, we also promote more infiltration to the aquifers, and we promote more evapotranspiration. So it's a city that is better prepared and is better integrated with the urban water side. But that's what we want to look at, how to integrate these sort of things back in Colombia, and especially in public spaces, because public spaces have this capability to be more than just recreational spaces or spaces for interaction. They can be also multifunctional spaces with environmental values. And most of the cities actually still not doing this in most cities in the world. But if we incorporate these sort of technologies, such as the ones we see here, we see artificial wetlands, we see rain gardens, and then we can, of course, provide a better adaptation for climate change. And if we do it in a more participatory way, involving local stakeholders, public sectors, and everybody that's in the place, then we have a better chance of success, of course, and developing evaluation and monitoring to improve the results. And in Melbourne, for example, this has been very successful. For example, this water system in Fitzroy Gardens to capture stormwater and harvesting stormwater, saving the city millions of dollars in water used, for example, for irrigation, right? Because using potable, drinkable water for irrigation is something that should not be. I mean, we have different resources of water that it can be easily collected, treated, and through different ways. For example, this diagram, using biofiltration garden beds. That's the sort of nature-based solutions to treat the water and then to be able to use it safely for irrigation or other sources that doesn't require drinkable water. And also the public spaces design is very important, not only to be multifunctional in a way that it can interact with the urban water cycle, but also how the urban spaces can adapt during different conditions of the year. And this is a very interesting example in the Netherlands, in the city of Rotterdam, from a studio called the Urbanisten. And this is a very small kind of project, but it's very interesting because it changes during the different seasons, right? So when it's the dry season, it's have one condition. Then when it's a little bit more rainy, then it's transformed and it floods, in a regular way, and so on. And then in winter, if it gets cold enough, then can even use it for skiing or something like that. In the place. So this is the sort of spaces that we find very interesting, especially in developing countries where we don't have so much resources to build public spaces and so much space. So we need to get these spaces to be even more multifunctional in order to work better. And learning from the experience in Australia, when of course all of you know that all these phenomena have been affecting Australia since many years with the large floodings and also large bushfires in the country. and all over the country, all the different kind of situations. And that it's one of the reasons that Australia invested a lot in research related to how to adapt cities in this way. And they created this CRC for water sensitive cities that some of you are already familiar with. That is not only looking at how to design public spaces, but also to how to influence public policy, on how to translate this into public policy, but also engaging communities as well in the process, and doing as well benchmarking and decision making as a tool for promoting these kind of solutions in different Australian cities, and have been very successful as well. I know that in Sydney as well, there are many examples related to this already in implementation. And this is supporting what we call the urban water transition from cities that only provide water supply or sewer city, and transition towards cities that have a better relationship with water, not only integrated it into the urban water system, but also integrated the waterways as well as recreational areas and areas of nature that people can enjoy. And finally, in the end of this transition, to finally get to the water-sensitive cities. So there's a lot of community socio-political drivers that are needed in order to do this transition. We're also looking at how to accelerate this transition, not to the need to go point by point, but to actually how to make cities to do this transition in a faster way, avoiding undesirable states. And the benefits of this, some of the ones I already mentioned, that the cities actually can provide ecosystem services instead of affecting the urban ecosystems. They can actually support them. And the cities have water supplies catchments. So not only the area of the catchment being outside the city, but also within the city, within the boundaries of the city. And of course, if we are talking about water sensitive cities, we need water sensitive communities, right? So we need to have communities that actually engage and they are, together in this whole system, and developing with these different kind of solutions, or what we call blue, green technologies, or nature-based solutions, that different names for that, such as artificial wetlands, bioswales, sediment ponds, rain gardens, rainwater tanks, and integrated all these kind of solutions into the urban environment. This is different from the traditional, approach from urban design. Normally, urban design, or most cities, they don't include these kind of measures to integrate better with the environment. But if we do it in this way, we can actually have very good or very well designed urban spaces, such as this one in Monash University, which is a system of artificial wetlands that are treating rainwater that is collected in this square to be reused later for irrigation or for other purposes, such as flushing toilets or something like this, that they don't require drinkable water. And my experience with this started working, as I mentioned, with the water sensitive project in Indonesia, and especially in the city of Bogor, located 3 hours from the city of Jakarta, in the island of Java. That it's an island that has a great biodiversity, but as well has a large amount of population, 150 million people living only in that island. Right, so that creates a lot of pressure, right, for how to provide water systems and how to treat the water and all things related to that. So this large amount of population puts this extra pressure on the system. And what we wanted to do is to support Indonesian cities on this transition and how to integrate better with water systems and water management using the green technology and other resources that we have. So it's a little bit of this is the city of Bogor. Located 3 hours from Jakarta. This is the city where we develop our pilot studies. So we have 4 pilot studies within the city from different kind of typologies, from Pulau Gulis, that was an informal settlement, Gereja Katulampa, so like a normal neighborhood, Central City, a new development, and City Front City as well, a new development around the lake. So we wanted to test this condition in different typologies and to see how these things that were needed to get them done. And I'm going to show you just a little bit of the first project of the Pulo Gully. So this is the photo of the area of the informal settlement, a really interesting informal settlement right in the middle of the river. This is the Chilibun River that flows all the way down to Jakarta. And the population in this informal settlement, they don't have access to drinkable water, and also they don't have any kind of water treatment systems, and all the pipes that you see sticking out of the houses are going directly to the river. And this is the same river where people use for laundry or they use for fishing, right? So that also creates a lot of problems, public health and things related to that. So that's why we selected it to be one of our case studies in here. So this is a bit of the typology and the morphology of the area. 2,600 inhabitants living in this very, very dense island in the middle of the Chilibun River, which forces us as well to be even more creative, because there wasn't even like public space available to include our infrastructure. So we needed to check different ways, to do it. And starting, of course, with the community, doing something that we call visioning FGDs, and then as well doing other kind of digital work to understand better the territory, such as drone mapping and digital elevation models, and then post-processing those models into 3D, because we have lack of information of the public settlement, and then of course the hydrology, the whole hydrology model of the territory, to finally come up with different proposals that we presented as well, and we discussed it with the community. This is the important part. We have this input not at the end of the process, but early in the start of the process, right? When there's actually possibilities to make changes that are needed by the community. And finally, we deliver these projects to the municipality of Bogor for them to start the building and the transformation of the areas. And this is the kind of solutions we came up with. So adaptation of public spaces. In here, we'll see different kind of, each one of these points is one kind of green infrastructure that we proposed to improve the environmental conditions of the place, collecting and harvesting rainwater to reuse, and using as well artificial wetlands to treat the wastewater before it's being discharged into in this case, the Chilibun River, right? So that kind of solutions are also very important to have in mind, especially when you don't have a lot of money, because these solutions are kind of low technical solutions. They don't require a lot of kind of money or great technology to do it. And also a project that is related to that, I also have the opportunity to work with some of the people leading this project, is the RISE project, Revitalization of Informal Settlements and Their Environments. And it's a really large project for informal settlements revitalization in Asia, making revitalization of 10 informal settlements in the city of Makassar, Indonesia, and 10 informal settlements in the city of Suva in Fiji. And the interesting thing about this is that it also included health assessments of the benefits. So they make a whole health analysis of the population before and after the construction of this infrastructure. This is the infrastructure already built, artificial wetlands, different sort of projects to make this environmentally better, and was supported by the Asian Development Bank and the Wellcome Trust. And now nowadays already finishing the project is already, the last stages of development. So with all this knowledge, and when I come back to Colombia, of course, I wanted to, bring this back to Colombia, because we have all these issues and more, right? We have all these pressing issues regarding lack of water access, and also risk problem related to water. So we presented a proposal to the university, and we got a grant to develop the Water Sensitive Cities project in Colombia. If you scan the code, you can also access to this book that is available. It's sadly only in Spanish for now, but it's very graphical. I can pass it around if you want to check it now. And then we selected 3 case studies in Colombia: the city of Cartagena in the Caribbean coast, the city of Bucaramanga, and the capital city of Bogota. Different case studies representing different hydrological conditions, and also different urbanization conditions in the country. And what we wanted to do is to assess the potential of public spaces for MBS adoption and climate change resilience. So I'm just going to show you a little bit of the places, some of the places that we selected in the city of Cartagena. This is the Parque Centenario Park, very close to the very beautiful colonial old town of Cartagena. So we did all the modeling on, how the space, how much water this space needed for irrigation, and how much water we can actually capture and reuse, and also the value of the infrastructure needed for that. So that's the sort of the first starting point to have all this data and to make all these models, so you can give this to the municipalities, for the municipality as well to have this information supporting the projects they want to develop in these public spaces. So this space looks like this now. It's a very nice kind of park in the city of Cartagena. But of course, suffering from different problems. It's the same park, but during the rainy season, it gets absolutely flooded. So we can reduce a lot of this if we incorporate these sort of measures that we were talking about. And our second case study in Cartagena is in a neighborhood called Barrio Boston. We also did the whole modeling on how much water they needed and how much water we can capture and treat and reincorporate into the system. And this neighborhood have this condition of these sort of channels that are absolutely polluted, as you can see here. It's like incredible amount of pollution, and this pollution is going directly to what we call the Ciénaga, which is kind of the sea we see over there, right? So without any kind of treatment. So of course this is an environmental catastrophe, and we needed to look for ways on how to change this, or at least how to reduce the large environmental impact of this, not only in the water systems but the community living around this area. And of course, they also have problems, during the rainy season, all this gets flooded, and then it's even, worse problem that they have. In that sense, in our last case study in Cartagena, this is an informal settlement called Policarpa. And so we did all the modeling as well for how much water we can capture and how much water we can reduce within the system, and especially supporting this community of Barrio Policarpa, because of the condition of being an informal settlement. That means that they cannot access to the city infrastructure, and they are not normally considered, within the budget of the city because of the condition of being informal. And that's been going on for quite some years, even 33 years now. So we wanted to work with them and try to support them in their, fight on how to get incorporated as well in the city, and to demonstrate as well that if the condition of being in a risk area can be reduced by the incorporation of this nature of the solution. So this is the neighborhood today, right? So with also a lot of problems of water pollution, also from industrial sources, because it's surrounded by an industrial area. So these industries as well create a lot of problems in the water systems, and of course with a lot of problems as well related to flooding during the rainy season. And one of the things we did also in the project in collaboration with a colleague from the University of Utrecht, Martin Kuller, it was to test a digital tool for geolocation of green infrastructure. So what the tool tries to do is through a GIS analysis, using GIS and multi-criteria decision analysis, to determine which areas are better to locate a specific kind of green infrastructure in the area. We also have support from the Erasmus Plus project in Europe, and they sent us 3 interns to work as well in the project. And what the tool does is to make a whole suitability framework, considering the ecosystem services approach, regulation, provisioning, and cultural and habitat. And then as well, the interesting thing is that incorporates as well the perception of the practitioners into the tool. And it's not only digitally calculated, but also we have perceptions from actually the stakeholders that can refine it even more the final product. And then through a whole series of steps, I'm not going to go through all of this, but in the end, having this output of the opportunities and needs map and what we call the suitability map for green infrastructure. And it was a big help because especially in developing countries, as we don't have large resources, if we're going to incorporate green infrastructure, we need to be sure that's going to work. And if we do these kind of things, then we are a bit more sure that actually it's going to have the rate of success. So we did the whole process with different workshops with the communities in Cartagena and all the different places that we were working, testing as well the tools together with stakeholders in these cities. And the results of the tools are something similar to this, right? So it shows in different areas what are the best places for bioretention, for example, of green roofs and so on. And it was a huge help to have this kind of technology as well in the project, together with different analysis that we did, such as the water balance model with aquacycle and the whole modeling of the water hydrology of the places. And then we come up with a series of proposals of how to retrofit the different public spaces that were selected. This is actually one in the city of Bogota, in the area close to our university. Actually, my office is just right next to it. This is a public square we call Plazoleta del Rosario, which nowadays doesn't have any kind of green infrastructure. And when it rains, sometimes it gets flooded, and the water is not being actually reused. And under this square, there is a public parking. So we took advantage that we already have a public parking, and then we can have a large, rainwater harvesting tank, because it's already, the hole is already there. And then we can just storage there, treat it, and then reuse it for the different areas around, like for flushing toilets and for irrigation and so on. And we do similar things for the different. This is one of the retrofitting proposals for Parque de los Sueños in Bucaramanga as well. And yeah, so I'm just going to finish this part just by with a little bit of conclusions or observations on this process and how this process has been going on in Colombia. So this water-sensitive urban design is definitely a valuable strategy to adapt our cities to climate change. However, we detected a series of barriers and issues that we really need to overcome in order to be able to these strategies to be more successful. Some of them are related to regulatory and public policy barriers. I mean, sometimes even the public policy, it's kind of established to include this kind of infrastructure in public space. Because the regulation says, or you cannot, or you need to do it in a different way. And so definitely we need to change public policy, need to address public policy as well for this to be able to be delivered to the communities. Also from the water providers, when we were showing this to the water providers, they were saying, no, but we're going to, lose money because people are going to get, buy less water from us, right? But this is not really the case. I mean, in the long term, they will not actually lose any revenue, but actually it will be more flexible, especially when we have these kind of drought situations like Bogota. So it's important for the water providers as well to change the mindset, in order to be able to understand the potential of this and not only to think about, just the money in their business. We also have a little bit of fragmentation between different levels, from the municipal level, metropolitan level, and regional levels. So when we want to introduce this kind of strategies, sometimes the responsibility of who needs to deliver this or to build there or to pay for it is not clear. It is the municipality, it is the metropolitan area, it is the regional, sort of administration. So this fragmentation also creates a little bit of barrier for that. And we also have lack of integration of these measures within the public space design manuals, because all the cities of the main cities in Colombia, they have public space design handbooks or manuals. And if this green infrastructure is not already in the manual, so it's not going to be constructed. Yeah, so we need to change, we need to adapt, we need to update the public space design manuals of the main cities in order to be delivered. And we also have some lack of technical capabilities in municipalities to adopt these kind of strategies because it's something relatively new. So they don't really know, the technical issues behind, or they don't necessarily have the people that is prepared to incorporate it. And so we also need to improve these capabilities within the municipalities. And long-term cost benefits analysis are also needed in order to support the business case, because these technologies have been rolled out say, the last 10, 15 years or so. So there is still a lack of really like large long-term cost benefits analysis that can support the business case as well in the municipalities. And we have a low local market for companies providing these. So if we're going to make a bidding and we're going to looking for companies to build this, and sometimes we cannot find the companies that actually are experts on constructing this kind of infrastructure, because it's something relatively new as well in our environment. And finally, appropriation and engagement of the MBS infrastructure by the community. Sometimes the community is a little bit worried that this kind of infrastructure is going to affect them in different ways. For example, with the artificial wetlands, they're worried that they will bring more mosquitoes, and then this will create even more health issues. So you needed to explain that the water is not really just staying there, the water is floating as well, and this creates no kind of mosquito environment. And we also have artificial wetlands, and the water is actually going under the surface, not on the top, right? So all these sort of issues also need to be discussed with the community for them to engage and to take care of this kind of infrastructure. And yes, I think that's all what I want to show you from this case study. And also we have a couple of publications from these experiences, which we also scan the code. You can get to this, our latest journal article in Water Practice and Technology. Also, we have another book coming. This, I think, will be ready in December. So we have a chapter in this book, Inclusive Cities and Global Urban Transformations from Springer. Also, showing a little bit more of the experiences with this project. And also from the Water Sensitive Cities project, there's a lot of information that you can check if you are interested in the topic. The Water Sensitive siting in Australia, or the Australian Indonesian Center as well, with all the experiences from the projects in Indonesia. Yeah, so that's my first part. I don't know how I'm doing on time, but check. Okay, I have a few minutes left. I'm just going to show you really quickly the other project that we're working on that is really also very related to this, the same issue. If you can put the first slide.
Well, if we could,
okay.
5 minutes.
Oh, 5 minutes.
Yeah, you got questions and.
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
so if we don't have time, you can just leave it there. And if it's better, if we have some Q&A, I'm also okay with that. So yeah, we can just leave it there.
Yeah, maybe leave it there.
Okay.
And then we can.
So thank you very much for your attention. So if you have any questions or comments regarding this project, I'm happy to answer.
Well, I had a question. Thanks for that presentation, very topical. In your final points, you mentioned that the water agencies are not very happy with potential loss of revenue. I'm just wondering if there is a financial sort of benefit for them potentially of being involved. I mean, are they involved in the discussions of the solutions? And I mean, potentially, whether the revenue goes to them, but if they see it financially, wouldn't they be willing to contribute if they ended up being potentially involved in capturing the water and I guess the sort of the financial markets around that?
Yeah, that's a very good point. Actually, we invited all the water providers to our workshops, and they were happy to attend. But then during the workshops, when they were sort of thinking that they will have this kind of loss of revenue, they were kind of not really really engaged with the solutions. But as you were saying, I mean, this is a kind of the need of changing the mindset, because these kind of solutions are never done, at least in the Colombian level. Mm-hmm. So they don't really know sometimes if it's going to be profitable for them, or how they're going to be incorporated into the system. But of course, if we're going to build up this, then the water providers have to be involved somehow. Even they can even build it as well, and then they can also, get some revenue as well.
Well, see, if they see it as a financial opportunity, they could be funding it too. So, as opposed to, it sounds like in your summary that they're not fully engaged in it. They see it as a threat, which potentially, if they're engaged in the right way, it could be an opportunity.
Yeah,
and a win-win for everyone.
I don't know how it is in Australia or Sydney. Are the water providers like actively engaged in delivering these sort of solutions?
Some of them are working with councils. I'm not an expert in that area. We could ask some others, or there'd be some other thoughts.
Sydney Water is actively trying to reduce water usage across the system. So I think it would be quite a different political environment here.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, especially in the city of Bogota, as I mentioned, we are currently on the water rationing. So this is like the extreme, the end of the whole thing. I mean, when the city comes to a decision that have to make like water rationing like one day a week from a certain area of the city, that's really, extreme solution. This should be like the end solution after everything has been tested. And so all these can, of course, prepare the city to be more resilient to that sort of impacts. And if 40 years ago, when we have the first water rationing problems in Bogota, they were thinking in a different way. Nowadays, we will have different sort of solutions. I was mentioning decentralized water solutions instead of the normal sort of big pipe, just one big pipe and then delivering water. And if the water doesn't get there and doesn't get enough water, then that's a problem. And if we have different decentralized system collecting and treating water, of course, that we can, prepare cities to be more resilient to that and to cope with this kind of impacts that sadly they are only going to be worse and worse. Right now here in Australia, you're mentioning that we have the warmest spring in 20 or 30 years, right? And the summer is going to be perhaps the hottest summer in history in Australia, right? So, and in Colombia as well, we are going through those changes, but we have, let's say, less capabilities to make these changes from the money point of view, but also from the kind of changing mindset point of view. It's very difficult to work with municipalities that are in the sort of just built in this way. Yeah.
We have another question from one of our online attendees.
G'day, thanks very much, Raul. That was really interesting presentation, and I guess I was interested. You mentioned the community involvement, but I guess and in that last answer you touched on, or I heard someone mention political, and I guess I was interested in the political will behind that work, and I think I guess reflecting on New South Wales, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, we had a drought and our dams were very low, and there was, I guess, a lot of discussion about how to protect water going forward. But then we flipped to floods, and then the discussion is a little bit more around how to prevent, I guess, damage due to floods. So, I guess we saw that change of political focus, and so I guess reflecting on that in your situations, how has the political support been for that sort of work?
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, the political perspective is really important, because at the end it comes to the political will of the people in charge at the time, the local mayor or the local governor, if they actually want to incorporate this or the necessity they see in incorporating it. In the case of Bogota, during the last administration, not the current one, but the last one, there was a really important change in this mindset. And they actually incorporated these measures into the urban design guidelines for the city. So it's the first city in Colombia that actually made that step. And that was because the mayor at the time, Claudia Lopez, she was, she came from the Green Party and was more committed to environmental issues as well. But sadly, the Green Party in Colombia, they don't have a lot of political power yet. So it's these situations, they don't happen as much as we would like to, right? It's just like because of this kind of special kind of situation that happened during last administration, but we definitely need a little bit more political will. And from the national point of view, actually our current president is also committed to that. And in the current national development plan, they put the water as the center of the plan. So it's in the idea, but it still is not executed. So we're looking at ways of how to execute this national political plan and to land it into different kind of levels, municipal level, metropolitan levels, and so on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a kind of off left field question, but
Sure.
some of the early pictures you were showing, and I know that your focus is on green infrastructure, but there was a lot of concrete and a lot of roads, and there are alternatives to concrete that allow water through, and they've been around for decades, but they don't seem to be picked up, probably for political reasons. But I was wondering whether there's an opportunity in the work that you do in public spaces to trial new technologies that are around water management, but are perhaps not green technologies, and to do some of that cost benefit analysis of those to try and incorporate them being picked up in roads and pavements and that kind of thing. Is that something that you've discussed in the work that you've done, whether you could include that in the package of work?
Yeah, we have some testing projects, especially in the city of Bogota. So we have like 10 or 15 of these green infrastructure projects already built. And then we're doing also the evaluation and monitoring of it. But as you were mentioning, we will need for this to be more long-term, not only for 1 year, but 2, 3, 4, or even 5 years, in order to be, more stronger as a business case as well to other projects to pick it up, right? We're also trying to incorporate this not only into the public design guidelines, but also in the regulations for building new parts of the city, what we call planes parciales, which is like master plans. And currently, these master plans, they don't have a lot of environmental regulations. They only will tell you density and, the public spaces that you need to allocate and so on. But there are no actually regulations in terms of water, in terms of energy, in terms of carbon emissions and so on. And we really need to update these tools for planning, because if it's not incorporated in these tools and you are building the city with these tools, then nothing's going to happen. So I think it's a step-by-step, process that we're doing in trying to testing these technologies.
So I would like to thank you, Raul Marino, for your presentation, and I would like to wish everybody good afternoon.
Thank you very much.